Conditional acceptance. Conditional acceptance. A conditional acceptance is a method or a tool you can use to settle a dispute over a bill or a debt, for example, honourably and lawfully without the need for a court. It works within the common law principles, which are fundamentally adversarial. The principle: you challenge your adversary to prove that their claim, bill or debt, is lawful by writing to them and asking them for the proof that you lawfully owe what you are being asked to pay. How it works. Fundamentally, you honourably recognise the claim being made upon you but require proof from them before you agree to pay out any funds. I conditionally accept to pay the money I lawfully owe upon proof of claim, providing the following terms and conditions are met in full, non-negotiable. You send 3 letters over the course of 30 days, each with a 10-day deadline, asking for very specific proofs of the claim, bill or debt, etc., which they have on you. You attach a number of terms and conditions for them to agree to. When they do not comply, they tacitly agree to your terms and conditions. You then send a notice of default, so it stands as a lawful agreement and proof that you have acted honourably to settle the dispute. Being in charge. By being a man and acting like one, we take charge of our affairs. We are capable, honourable, and we are able to settle our disputes effectively. You must know what you need to do to be effective in handling these matters. If you send off letters without really understanding your position, you will receive responses which may trip you up or make you doubt yourself, which may make trouble for you in the long run. I researched for a year before tackling anything with the system, but there's so much information available and many ways to approach it. This is the way which worked for me. I was determined and did not stop until I was clear. You may need to get clever to make it work for you. It's really about asserting your authority and not backing down. There may be some inconveniences to your normal ways because this is about the growth of yourself. Being in charge and being in honour. In a fair world, we can't just stomp around barking our orders and imposing our will on others. My guess is that you don't like that happening to you either. Remember that under the common law, my rights end where yours begin. So if we want to engage or do business honourably without harming others, we must notify them of our intentions first. We call this a notice. By issuing a notice before taking any action, we give a chance for other men and women to respond and therefore remain in honour. It is customary to give 3 warnings or notices to be absolutely sure we are understood and there can be no mistake. When there is no challenge to our position, we are able to go ahead with our intentions and still remain in honour as fair warning has been given. Doing business. As a man or a woman born onto the land, you have inalienable rights. These are rights which cannot be taken from you. You have a right to benefit from the fruit of your labour, and you have a right to contract with whomever you choose. You cannot be forced to contract, associate, or be made subject to anyone else's will. You are a sovereign human being. This is a fundamental truth, though we have mostly forgotten it. We live in a society which would rather you forget about this amazing fact because it gives the system power over you, power to feed off you and your labour, your energy and your efforts of a lifetime and for generations past. It is time to decide with whom you choose to do business. When dealing with a corporation, always write to the CEO with his or her full name. You are writing to the man or the woman responsible for the organisation. This is very important. The man in charge. When dealing with a corporation, we write to the one in charge because he or she has the full responsibility, meaning that he has been given the power to act for the corporation. You give him/her the opportunity to weigh up and act on your notices, etc. It also means that if any bad behaviour by the corporation's actions or agents happens, then the man in charge is responsible and you will be able to claim against him or her for causing injury, harm or loss to another. This is a great deterrent for most and you need to make them aware of it in your letters. Their ignorance of the actual law is no excuse. Being a master. A master of something is one who is able to respond to challenges in a given situation that creates the best outcome for those concerned. If one has mastered a trade, for example, the customer gets a great service and a product, and it is done with great skill and adaptability. If one is master of a ship, he is the highest authority on board and the one who decides how the ship runs and where it goes. He is the one in charge. If we observe the court system, the significance of titles, and we accept that the court is really a game about ships or admiralty, we can conclude that to have a master title in a court would imply you are of high status and different from being surety or security, as is a Mr., Miss, Mrs., Ms., or indeed cattle, chattel or property. The master title. Being a master of something takes a level of commitment and practice to become skilled and competent. Obtaining a master title purely for these circumstances in dealing with a court may not be necessary, but to my mind the ability to detach oneself from the subtle implied meanings as much as possible means there is even less room for misinterpretation and assuming your position and status to extort your property from you. As a synchronized journey, I became a master of Reiki, an energy healing practice for which I have a certificate. I have taken this to my bank and asked them to replace my Mr., Mrs., Miss, Ms. with a master title. This means that I have removed the title implicating me as surety and security to any debt. I was also able to re-sign and assert my full inalienable rights, taking a proof, a photocopy of that as evidence. At the same time, I also sent to the bank CEO the holographic testament to send notice of my intentions. Without prejudice. When writing your letters, always use at the header the phrase "without prejudice." If you use this, you are removing any possibility of what you say being used against you or twisted to mean something else, or otherwise contracting. I believe it also means it can't be used against you in a court. I always use it if I have to sign anything too, and clarify my status, claiming my inalienable rights at the same time. Private individual, all inalienable rights reserved. On the front line. When you decide to engage in battle, you must have your defence strategy in place. It may be that bailiffs will threaten to come to your property. They consider that they have an implied right of access to your property. This is rubbish, of course, but you must remove all implied right of access by notifying them of that fact on your property's perimeter boundary access or your front door. See next slide. A bailiff or debt collector will consider the slightest nod as creating joinder with you and thereby giving your consent for him to act. Do not answer their phone calls. Do not open your door or windows. Do not answer to your legal name. Consider putting a sturdy bolt on the inside of your door. They are not allowed to kick a door in. After any visit, write to them promptly, sending your notice of implied rights of access removed to reiterate, clarify your position, your status, etc. and basically just tell them to go away. If they persist, send a cease and desist notice. Take notice. Refer to the letters provided only for information on how to write your own letters. Do not use them verbatim without having researched enough fully to understand what you're doing. If you're thinking for yourself, you'll be a stronger force to deal with. Always, at the very least, get a proof of posting. It forms a stronger claim for you if you can prove your letter was delivered to their office, so pay for a signed-for service. This is not legal advice. There is a big difference between legal and lawful. The legal system, which is what most people accept as law, is only applicable by you consenting to it. Your consent into the legal system is given away implicitly or explicitly. For example, by going to a court, you are assumed to consent as your actions have shown that. Warning: These tools are provided for your education. If you choose to use them, you take full responsibility for your actions. This information is to assist in extracting yourself from a system which is corrupt, fraudulent, and does not serve the common man and woman. If you are reading this, then you are on a path to greater awareness and development, which will result in creating a better and fairer world for those who choose to be part of it. This information is applicable to circumstances where you are dealing with the legal system and large corporations relating to your legal name. For example, council tax, gas and electricity, TV license, water supply services, banks, credit card companies, etc., or anywhere where your name is written alongside a legal title, Mr., Mrs., Ms. If your name is shown in capital letters, too. This is not for dealing with other men and women whom you receive goods and services from, or with whom you have signed a bilateral contract with another human, i.e., both signatures on the paper and witnessed. Contracts with corporations, so-called, are in fact unilateral agreements, one signature, and are not binding or enforceable in law. Disclaimer. The body of this information is the culmination of some 3 years of my private pursuits, whether in researching on the internet or in books, or taking direct action towards corporations, city council and banks by challenging them in letters. I give this information freely to add to the wealth of knowledge out there to help anyone who is actively standing on their own authority and taking full responsibility for themselves. It is provided with good intention and for your benefit. However, I am not infallible, and nor do I claim to have full knowledge of this subject. If you have a good heart and your intentions are pure, acting in the best interest for yourself and others, to put right the wrongs you perceive within the currently established order, then this information will serve you. Enforcing your rights may be challenging, but don't give up. The truth will set you free.